The gunshots echoed through the streets of Nevada City, California, on that fateful spring day in 1875 when Victoria Clayton's life shattered like a mirror dropped on hardwood. She wasn't there to see her husband's body crumple to the ground during the bank robbery, but the news reached her while she was hanging laundry, the white sheets fluttering like surrender flags in the breeze. "He never stood a chance, Mrs. Clayton," Sheriff Mills had said, hat in hand as he stood on her porch. "Thomas tried to stop them from taking the bank's money, thought he could be a hero." Victoria collapsed onto her knees, aware of two small faces peering from behind the parlor curtains, her 5-year-old son William and 3-year-old daughter Emma. Their father was gone, and with him, the future they had planned in this bustling mining town nestled in the Sierra foothills. The funeral was held 2 days later, and Victoria stood dry-eyed and hollow beside a freshly dug grave, her children clinging to her skirts. She had cried herself empty the night before, and now there was only a vast emptiness and the weight of responsibility crushing down on her shoulders. "You'll need to consider your options," Mrs. Holloway, the banker's wife, said afterward, her voice dripping with false concern. "A young widow with 2 children can't manage alone. My brother in Sacramento is recently widowed himself and has expressed interest in—" "No," Victoria said firmly, clutching William's small hand tighter. "I'll manage." "But your children need a father," Mrs. Holloway insisted. Victoria lifted her chin. "They had a father. And his memory deserves better than me rushing to replace him." That evening, after tucking her exhausted children into bed, Victoria sat at her kitchen table counting coins and bills by lamplight. Thomas had been the bank's security guard, a respectable position that had provided them a comfortable living. Now, with winter not far off and food prices rising, the meager savings wouldn't last until Christmas. The morning after the funeral, offers began arriving. First came Mr. Peterson, the general store owner, a widower of 60 with wandering eyes who made Victoria's skin crawl when he mentioned how he always admired her spirit. Next was the banker himself, Mr. Holloway, suggesting with uncomfortable directness that his wife wouldn't live long with her consumption, and Victoria would make a suitable replacement. There were others, 2 men who had never given her a second glance when Thomas was alive, suddenly appearing with flowers and barely concealed ambitions. "Mama, why do these men keep coming to our door?" William asked one evening as she prepared their simple dinner of beans and cornbread. Victoria paused, wooden spoon in hand. "They think we need help, sweetheart." "Do we?" She knelt before her son, noting how much he resembled Thomas with those serious blue eyes. "We have each other, that's what matters most." But the truth settled heavily on her chest that night as she counted their dwindling funds. She would need to find work, and quickly. Victoria began taking in laundry, the harsh lye soap turning her once soft hands red and cracked. She sold her good dresses and Thomas's pocket watch, keeping only his wedding band on a chain around her neck. When that wasn't enough, she started cleaning at the Silver Dollar Saloon before dawn, scrubbing floors and emptying spittoons before her children woke. "You're killing yourself, Vicky," said her friend Mabel, who worked as a barmaid. "And for what? Pride? Take one of those offers. The Holloway man has money." "And he has wandering hands," Victoria replied sharply. "I won't trade my dignity or my children's future for security. They deserve better than a stepfather who sees them as burdens." Summer faded into autumn, and with the changing leaves came new troubles. William caught a fever that kept Victoria awake for 3 nights, praying and applying cold compresses to his burning forehead. When Emma began coughing too, the doctor's visit cost nearly a month's earnings. "You need rest yourself, Mrs. Clayton," Dr. Morrison told her, noting the dark circles under her eyes. "These children need a mother who's alive and well." "What they need is time," Victoria insisted. "Time to heal from losing their father before I bring someone new into their lives." October brought early snow to the mountains, and an increase in miners seeking warm shelter and entertainment in town. The Silver Dollar hired Victoria for evening work as well, serving drinks and deflecting advances while Mabel watched the children. The extra money helped, but the late hours left her bone weary and missing precious moments with William and Emma. It was on a particularly busy Saturday night that trouble walked through the saloon doors. 3 rough-looking men, trail dust still clinging to their clothes, stomped in demanding whiskey. Victoria recognized their type, immediately troublemakers looking for a place to spend their ill-gotten gains. "Ain't you a pretty little thing?" said the tallest one, grabbing her wrist as she delivered their drinks. "Sit with us a spell, darlin'." "I'm working, sir," Victoria replied firmly, attempting to pull away. His grip tightened painfully. "I'm paying good money. You can work right here on my lap." The saloon fell quiet as other patrons turned to watch. Victoria's heart hammered in her chest, but she kept her expression neutral. She'd learned that showing fear often made situations worse. "The lady said she's working," came a low, steady voice from behind her. "I suggest you let her go." The man who had been sitting quietly in the corner now stood beside Victoria's table. He wasn't particularly large, but something in his stance made the troublemaker's confidence waver. His clothes were dusty from the trail, but of good quality, a cattleman, not a drifter. "This ain't your business, cowboy," the tall man growled. The stranger's hand rested casually near his holster. "I'm making it my business." For a tense moment, Victoria thought gunfire would erupt. Then the tall man released her wrist with a curse, knocking over his whiskey deliberately. "Place ain't worth my time anyway." After the troublemakers stomped out, Victoria turned to thank her defender. In the lamplight, she could see he was younger than she'd initially thought, perhaps 30, with sun-weathered skin and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. "Thank you, Mr. Jameson, Tyler Jameson." He touched the brim of his hat. "No need for thanks, madam. Men like that understand only one language. Still, I appreciate it. I'm Victoria Clayton." She gestured toward the spilled whiskey. "Let me replace that drink on the house." Tyler smiled, revealing a dimple in his left cheek. "Only if you'll spare a minute to sit and join me. You look like you could use a moment's rest." Normally, Victoria would decline, but something in his straightforward manner made her pull out a chair. "Just a minute." "I have 2 children waiting at home." His eyes softened. "Children are a blessing. How old?" "William is 5 and Emma just turned 3, she said, surprised by how easily the conversation flowed. "My husband passed this spring." Tyler nodded respectfully. "I'm sorry for your loss, Mrs. Clayton." "Thank you, Mr. Jameson." She studied him. "Are you passing through Nevada City?" "Not exactly. I've purchased the old Harrison ranch outside town, planning to raise cattle and horses." He ran a hand through his sandy hair. "Been traveling the territory looking for stock, just got back today." Victoria remembered the Harrison place, 500 acres of good grazing land that had sat empty since old man Harrison died 2 years prior. "That's ambitious for one man." "I like a challenge," he replied with that same easy smile, "and I have experience. Ran my family's ranch in Texas until my parents passed." The conversation was cut short when Mabel appeared at Victoria's side. "Emma's asking for you, Vicky. Seems she had a nightmare." Victoria stood immediately. "I'm sorry, Mr. Jameson, I need to." "Of course," he said, rising as well. "May I walk you home? These streets can be unpredictable at night." "That's not necessary, I insist," he said, already reaching for his coat. "Consider it neighborly concern rather than charity." The autumn night was crisp as they walked the 3 blocks to Victoria's small house. Tyler maintained a respectful distance, commenting on the town and his plans for the ranch. "Will you be hiring help?" Victoria asked, thinking of her financial situation. "Several hands once I get established." He glanced at her curiously. "Why do you ask?" Victoria hesitated. "My husband was good with horses. I learned a bit from him. If you need someone to help with paperwork or supplies." Tyler stopped walking, turning to face her. "Mrs. Clayton, are you asking for employment?" "I'm asking for an opportunity," she corrected, lifting her chin. "I have 2 children to support, and cleaning saloons isn't a long-term solution." He studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable in the moonlight. "I respect your directness. Come by the ranch next week. We'll discuss possibilities." They reached her door, where Mabel waited with a sleeping Emma in her arms. Victoria thanked Tyler again and watched him tip his hat before striding away into the darkness. "Well, well," Mabel whispered, a knowing smile on her face. "The mysterious ranch buyer himself. Half the unmarried women in town have been speculating about him for months." Victoria took her daughter, breathing in her sweet scent. "He's just being kind." "Handsome kind," Mabel observed, "and not wearing a wedding ring." Victoria shook her head. "I'm not interested in remarrying, Mabel. My children need stability, not confusion." "Your children need a father figure," Mabel countered softly, "and you need someone to share your burdens with. What they need is a mother who can provide for them without depending on a man's charity," Victoria said firmly. "Good night, Mabel." Over the next week, Victoria couldn't stop thinking about Tyler Jameson's offer. Working at her ranch would be hard but respectable, and likely better paying than scrubbing saloon floors. When Saturday came, she dressed in her most practical skirt and blouse, left the children with Mabel, and borrowed Mr. Wilson's wagon for the 5-mile journey to the Harrison Ranch. The property looked different than she remembered. Fresh paint brightened the main house, and new fencing enclosed the corral area. Several men were constructing additional outbuildings, and a small herd of cattle grazed in the distance. Tyler emerged from the barn as she pulled up, wiping his hands on a rag. "Mrs. Clayton," he called with evident pleasure. "You came?" "I said I would," she replied, accepting his help down from the wagon. He gave her a tour of the property, explaining his plans for expansion and the improvements already underway. Victoria was impressed by his knowledge and vision. "I need someone to manage supplies, correspondence, and accounts," Tyler explained as they sat on the porch with coffee. "The previous ranchers I worked for always said a woman's organizing mind was worth 5 cowboys when it came to running operations smoothly." "And the pay?" Victoria asked directly. Tyler named a figure that made her eyes widen twice what she earned at the saloon. "Plus, there's the foreman's cabin," he added, pointing to a small but well-built structure near the main house. "It needs some fixing up, but it would save you the trip to town daily. You and your children would be welcome to it." Victoria's mind raced with possibilities. The cabin would eliminate rent expenses, and the salary would allow her to save for the children's future. But living on a ranch with a single man could damage her reputation. "People will talk," she said finally. Tyler's expression grew serious. "Mrs. Clayton, I'm offering employment, not impropriety. You'd have your own home, proper working hours, and my complete respect. If reputation concerns you, my aunt is arriving from Sacramento next month to help manage the household. She'll provide all the propriety anyone could demand." Victoria considered his words. "I would need to bring my children with me during working hours until I can arrange schooling for William." "Children belong on a ranch," Tyler said simply. "There's no better education than watching things grow and build. They'd be welcome in the main house while you work." The offer seemed too good to refuse, yet Victoria hesitated. "Why me, Mr. Jameson? Surely others in town would want this position." Tyler leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Because when those men threatened you, you didn't cower or cry. You stood your ground with dignity. That's the kind of strength I need in someone helping build this place." He paused. "And because I see how hard you're working for those children. I respect that more than I can say." 2 weeks later, Victoria and her children moved into the foreman's cabin at the Jameson Ranch. Tyler had made good on his promise to repair it, adding new curtains and even a small rocking horse for Emma that he claimed to have found in the attic. William, initially suspicious of any man after his father's death, gradually warmed to Tyler after being allowed to help feed the horses. November brought Tyler's Aunt Martha, a plump, cheerful woman who took an immediate liking to Victoria's children and insisted on teaching Emma to bake, while William attended the newly established town school. With Martha's presence, Even the most gossip-prone townspeople found little to criticize about the arrangement. Victoria flourished in her new role. Her organizational skills brought order to the ranch operations, and Tyler increasingly sought her opinion on business matters. They developed an easy working relationship, with Victoria gradually sharing more about her life with Thomas, and Tyler recounting tales of his years driving cattle in Texas. "You've built something remarkable here in just a few months," Victoria commented one evening as they reviewed the ranch ledgers on the main house porch. The children were inside with Martha, helping prepare for the upcoming Thanksgiving meal. Tyler gazed out at the property, now boasting nearly 100 head of cattle and a dozen quality horses. "I couldn't have done it without your help." "Nonsense, you had the vision. Vision without execution is just daydreaming." He turned to her, his expression earnest. "Victoria, I've been meaning to ask you something." Her heart inexplicably quickened. "Yes, Christmas is coming. I'd like to get something special for William and Emma, but I don't want to overstep. Would that be appropriate?" The question was both a relief and a disappointment. "That's very thoughtful, but not necessary." "I want to," he insisted gently. "Those children have brightened this place in ways I never expected. William has the makings of a fine horseman, and Emma—" He chuckled. "Well, she's convinced the chickens produce eggs solely for her collection rounds." Victoria smiled, watching the affection in his eyes as he spoke of her children. In the months they'd been at the ranch, Tyler had never treated William and Emma as burdens or intrusions. He answered William's endless questions about horses patiently, taught him to ride his own pony, and didn't mind when Emma followed him around the yard helping with his chores. "They've grown fond of you too," she admitted. The winter brought heavy snows that isolated the ranch for days at a time. During one particularly fierce blizzard, Tyler insisted Victoria and the children stay in the main house rather than risk the short but dangerous walk to their cabin. They spent the evening playing checkers and sharing stories around the fireplace, with Tyler entertaining the children with tales of his adventures on cattle drives. After the children fell asleep in the guest room, Victoria sat with Tyler in comfortable silence, watching the flames dance in the hearth. "I never thought I'd feel at peace again after Thomas died," she said quietly. "I was so afraid for our future." Tyler's gaze was warm. "You're an extraordinary woman, Victoria. The way you fought for your children, refused to compromise your principles. It's rare to find such courage." "It wasn't courage," she confessed. "It was terror, terror of making the wrong choice for them." "That's exactly what courage is," he countered. "Doing what's right despite your fear." Christmas morning dawned bright and clear. Victoria woke to excited whispers as William and Emma discovered the stockings Martha had helped prepare. To her surprise, there were gifts under the small tree for her, as well as a beautiful leather-bound journal and a delicate silver pendant. "Tyler insisted," Martha explained with a knowing smile. "Said every hard-working woman deserves something pretty." Later that day, Tyler revealed his gifts to the children, a hand-carved wooden ranch set for William, complete with tiny horses and cattle, and a porcelain doll with real hair for Emma. The children's delight was palpable, and when they spontaneously hugged Tyler in thanks, Victoria saw him blink back moisture in his eyes. "Thank you," she said later when they had a moment alone. "You've made this Christmas special for them. They deserve it," he replied simply. "And so do you, Victoria." As winter gave way to spring, Victoria noticed changes in herself. She laughed more easily, worried less, and found herself looking forward to her daily conversations with Tyler. The ranch was thriving, and her children were healthy and happy. One warm April afternoon, Tyler suggested a picnic by the stream that ran through the property. Martha packed a basket, and the four of them spent a leisurely day watching William try to catch minnows while Emma collected wildflowers. While the children played nearby, Tyler turned to Victoria. "I've been thinking about the future of this place. The cattle business is booming," Victoria noted. "You could expand further." "I'm not talking about the cattle." Tyler's expression grew serious. Victoria, these past months have been the happiest of my life, and it's because of you and those children. Her heart began to race. Tyler, please let me finish. He took a deep breath. I know you vowed not to remarry for your children's sake. You feared a stepfather would resent them or change their memories of their father. I respect that more than I can say. He reached for her hand. But I need you to know that I love William and Emma as if they were my own. I would never try to replace their father's memory only to add to the love in their lives. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. They adore you. And I adore their mother, Tyler said softly. I love your strength, your principles, your kindness. I love the family we've become without even trying. He produced a small velvet box from his pocket. I'm not asking for an answer today. Just for you to consider that sometimes, what's best for children is seeing their mother happy and loved. And Victoria, I would spend my life making sure you never regretted giving me that chance. Victoria looked over at her children, William showing Emma how to skip stones across the water, both of them laughing in the dappled sunlight. For nearly a year, she had focused solely on their needs, pushing aside her own heart. I told myself they needed stability more than I needed companionship, she whispered. They have stability, Tyler pointed out gently. What they could have now is a complete family, not to replace what was lost, but to build something new alongside those precious memories. Victoria thought of Thomas, his laughter, his dreams for their children. Would he have wanted her to remain alone or to find happiness again with a man who treasured his children? William asked me last week if he could call you Uncle Tyler, she confessed. I didn't know what to tell him. Tyler's eyes brightened. What would you think of him calling me Pa instead? Not to forget his father, but to have someone here to guide him as he grows. Victoria looked at the ring nestled in velvet, a simple gold band with a small diamond that caught the afternoon light. I think Thomas would approve of the man you are with his children. Is that a yes? Tyler asked, hope evident in his voice. Instead of answering, Victoria called to her children. When they came running over, curious and breathless, she took their small hands in hers. William, Emma, Mr. Tyler has asked me a very important question, she began carefully. He's asked if he could become part of our family if I would marry him. William's eyes widened. Would you live in our house? Tyler smiled. Actually, all of you would live in the main house with me. Your mother would be my wife and you would be my children if that's something you might want. Emma, less concerned with details, clapped her hands. Like a real family, we are already a real family, Victoria assured her. But yes, Tyler would be like a father to you both. William's face grew serious, so like his father's that Victoria's heart ached. But what about Papa? I don't want to forget him. Tyler knelt to the boy's level. William, your Papa will always be your first father, the one who gave you life and loved you first. Nothing changes that. I would never try to take his place in your heart, only add my love alongside his memory. We would talk about him, remember him, honor him always. The boy considered this, then asked, would I learn to ride the big horses, not just my pony? Tyler laughed. When you're ready, yes. Then I think it would be okay, William decided gravely. Victoria felt tears spill down her cheeks as Emma threw her arms around Tyler's neck. Can I call you Papa now? Tyler looked to Victoria, his own eyes suspiciously bright. That depends on your mama's answer. 3 sets of expectant eyes turned to her. Victoria thought of the lonely nights after Thomas died, the fear that had driven her decisions, and the gradual healing that had come with Tyler's steady presence in their lives. Yes, she said simply. Yes to all of it. They were married in the town church 2 weeks later, with William proudly serving as ring bearer and Emma scattering wildflowers down the aisle. The townspeople who had once gossiped about the widow working at the ranch now smiled approvingly at the family's happiness. That evening, after the children had been tucked into their new rooms in the main house, Victoria stood on the porch with her husband, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. No regrets? Tyler asked, his arms around her waist. Only that I almost let fear stop me from finding this happiness, she replied, leaning back against his chest. I was so determined to protect them that I nearly missed seeing what they really needed. Which was, Victoria turned in his arms, a mother who remembered how to hope. And a man who could love them without conditions or expectations, who could see them as a blessing rather than a burden. Tyler kissed her gently. They are a blessing. You all are. 1 year later, Victoria stood in that same spot, cradling their newborn son James in her arms while Tyler helped William saddle his first full-sized horse, and Emma chattered about starting school in the fall. The ranch had doubled in size, becoming one of the most prosperous in the territory. I never imagined this life was possible, Victoria told Martha as they watched the family scene unfold. The older woman squeezed her hand. Sometimes the best futures are the ones we don't plan. You just have to be brave enough to recognize them when they appear. As Tyler looked up and caught her eye, his smile containing all the love and promises he'd kept faithfully, Victoria knew she had finally found the courage to embrace not just survival, but joy for herself and for her children. The family they had built together was stronger for having been chosen with such care, rooted in respect for the past while growing confidently toward the future. In the golden California sunset, with the ranch stretching before them and their children's laughter filling the air, Victoria silently thanked Thomas for the love they had shared, and Tyler for teaching her that her heart was big enough to honor that love while making room for new happiness. Some might call it a second chance, but Victoria knew better. It was simply the continuation of a journey with more love than she had ever dared to hope for.